Hi, everyone. I'm Gigi Howard. I'm a librarian and host of the podcast Drinks in the Library, where every week I interview a guest about their favorite book and we pair it with a drink. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're wrapping up. It's the last day of every library's Banned Book Week Live Festival, and I hope you've been enjoying it as much as I have. This event has been such a wonderful opportunity to talk about important conversations around reading, libraries, censorship, and just storytelling in general. If there's a session you've missed, don't worry about it because you can catch them all on every library's YouTube channel and also their Facebook. Today, there's two important conversations that we want to be having. First, what are we doing to directly combat censorship and book bans? Every library is the only national action committee for libraries, and they've been working tirelessly to safeguard us, support ballot measures, and address campaigns of erasures. And today, every library, we're so excited to be partnering with Authors Against Book Bans, and then we'll be bringing the wonderful panel that I'll be introducing momentarily. But the second thing is we need your help. Whether you're concerned about unconstitutional censorship or attacks on marginalized populations, there are tangible ways to get involved today. Visit fightforthefirst.org. We're here to connect you with ways to take action and defend access to books and the stories that matter. Speaking of important conversations, I am so excited to introduce today's session on the joy and depth of reading and writing. We're today with three wonderful authors who are going to dive deep into the topics that define Banned Books Week. First one that I'm introducing is Anne Angels, whose hi, Anne.
Hi.
Hi. Recent works includes Things I'll Never Say, Stories About Our Secret Selves. She's also the author of Janis Joplin's Rise Up Singing and Adopted Like Me, My Adoption Heroes. She is co-editing Silent Embrace, Perspectives on Birth and Adoption with her daughter, Amanda Angel. Her current projects include young adult novels and short story collections, and teaches writing at Mount Mary University in Milwaukee. And she enjoys spending time with her husband, Jeff, and their 4 adult children. All right. And our next guest with me tonight is Kayla Cagan. Hi, Kayla. Kayla's debut novel, Piper Parish, received wide praise, starred reviews, and was an Amazon bestseller, a Barnes & Noble Best Book of the Month, and an Indie Next Choice. It was also selected for the Spirit of Texas High School Reading Program and several other honors. Her second book, Art Boss, was praised by Kirkus and Booklist. Her short plays and monologues have been published widely and produced, and she has contributed to various comics and essay collections. Kayla lives in Los Angeles with her husband. All right, and I've got Laura Gao here. Laura is the author and illustrator as well of the YA graphic novel featuring queer and diverse teens. Their graphic novel, Messy Roots, right here, debuted on the Indies bestseller list in 2022. And this book is based on their short comic, The Wuhan I Know, which was written in response to the growing xenophobia during the COVID-19 pandemic. Laura's upcoming book, Kirby's Lessons on Falling in Love, will be released in 2025. So wonderful. So glad to be with all of y'all tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And we were talking about we're all over the country here. And so I think my first question when we talk about authors and writing is, when was the moment you knew you wanted to be a writer? Anne, do you want to get us going?
Yeah, I was just answering this question to my students, and it was, I'm from a large family. I'm one of 9, and my oldest sister is my Irish twin. We're less than a year apart. She's also my tormentor. Um, Anyway, I discovered early on, like I was probably in sixth grade, and I discovered if I wrote really sad stories, I could make her cry. And that made me feel like stories had power, and it was the kind of power I wanted because it allowed people to show their emotion. So I've always written since then.
Wow. Whether your sister likes it or not.
Yeah. Actually, she likes it if her name is in the story.
Yeah. That's awesome. Kayla, what about you? Oh, Kayla, you may be muted.
Of course I am. Hi.
Yes.
I'm back.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I kind of came to it in a strange little route. I was a real theater kid, and my background has been in theater most of my life, but I started I wanted to be an actress, but what I kept doing was changing all the words in the scripts because I didn't think they were right. I was like, this isn't good. And then I realized, oh, I might want to be a playwright. And then from there I realized, oh, I want to be a writer. Like it just kind of naturally, it was like, I want to be behind the stage and I want to create the stories. And I stayed in playwriting for a long time before I kind of took the leap towards novels, mostly out of fear. But because I was like, oh, that seems like a huge thing to do. Playwriting, I understand. But
Yeah.
and then I loved it. And also, it is really good to get revenge on your siblings in books. I had to say, and I was like, oh, yeah, I feel that. I feel that. But yeah, I kind of went through the theater door to the writing door, and I've just been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's so interesting. Definitely a different path than I hear a lot. So, and Laura, how about you?
Yeah, I love hearing everyone else's paths because I also had a unconventional route where I actually was more of a visual artist first and then a writer second. When I first emigrated over to the States, some of like the earliest things I remember consuming were cartoons, anime, manga, and very early on, I would just doodle on my Pokemon cards and like create little backstories for like Pikachu and Charizard. And then my parents would get me comics that didn't have words on it because I didn't know English then. And that was actually the first time that I was introduced to storytelling as a medium that can transgress, all cultural borders and language borders. And so ever since then, I was just really hooked on comics as a medium of storytelling. And I read a bunch, and then now I'm very glad to be creating that for the next generation.
Yeah, I think it's so cool you do your own, you're an illustrator as well as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, a lot of times people have to pair up, but you've got it all in-house.
I just like double the trouble, like double the pain.
Oh man. We also are here, we're talking about Banned Books Week. And our partnership, of course, with Authors Against Book Bans, which is a wonderful organization, relatively recently formed, right, within the last year. And so I really want to ask, what prompted the decision for you to become an early member of Authors Against Book Bans? Laura, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, definitely. I heard about it pretty early on just through my circles. Here in California, we have a huge base, and specifically in the Bay Area, some of my friends like Mari Naomi and Maggie Takuta Hall, who's now part of the national leadership, they have been talking about it for a while. And I knew not only because my books have faced challenges and bans around the world, but also I wanted to support other voices out there, diverse voices, queer voices. And so I joined early, but more as just like a general member. And in the last couple of months, the California org reached out asking, oh, can we have some volunteers to come join the leadership team so that we can really rally the troops for this week in particular, the Banned Books Weeks. And so that's how I ended up getting involved, helping to plan a lot of these.
Wow. That's just special. And how did you get involved with Authors Against Book Bans?
I think it was on Facebook. Ellen Hopkins, the author of Crank, posted about Authors Against Banned Books, and also I'm a graduate of Vermont College of Fine Arts, writing for young adults and children, and they really promoted joining the organization, so I joined it that way.
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad they pulled you in. Kayla,
Yeah.
how'd you get your start?
Well, in the unfortunate way of many of my friends were having books banned over and over again, and I'm very close knit with a lot of young adult writers and some middle grade writers as well. And it was happening to many of my queer friends and many of my Black friends, and my book was slipping through a little because there was a hidden queer character, and they didn't seem to pull a lot of attention until it got banned. Only in one state so far, but I won't say the state right now because they're going through a hurricane, so we'll leave it at that. But it was one of those things where it's like, the saying, once they come for you, they came for so and so, now they come for so and so, right? And it was one thing to sit there and argue on behalf of my friends, but felt very individual and felt kind of like, does one voice matter to going up against these organized groups? And then suddenly David Levithan had emailed out to his group of people, and I happened to be on the email, and I was like, oh, we're organizing, great, I'm in. And so yeah, I as soon as I had the chance to find out, because where I live there, just about 45 minutes south, there's a lot of disruptive staff and book town halls that are happening, and school boards that are having issues. And so, for me, it's a car ride to get down there. I can do this. I can go, and I'm not too scared. I'm a little scared, but I'm not too scared. But I don't know. United, I felt like I could be more effective than just going, I support you to a friend. It's important to listen to them, but if we can make a group stand, I think it's just more effective. And I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I guess that leads to the question of like, what are other things that authors in particular can bring to the anti-censorship fight? Let's see. Kayla, do you want to just keep going on that note?
Yeah, and tell me to cut it short too if I'm going long. But I think one of the most important things we can do as authors, when we are speaking to people who disagree with how they see book banning, is to remind them, first of all, that it's a First Amendment right. That this is a right for us to have these. It's a part of our freedom of speech, and it's also okay to publish this. It does not mean anyone ever has to read it. But the second thing that I try to do whenever I come up in a confrontation possibly with someone is to talk to them like a reader, not like a writer. And I go, you know what? There's plenty of books I don't like out there. You're right. There's plenty of books I don't want that aren't for me. And sometimes I'll just pick a genre that I don't read too much in, like Westerns or whatever. And I'll be like, I don't know. I'm not going to read that. But I still think it has the right to be there. And I still think it has a valuable place. And even if I didn't think it had the right to be there, it doesn't matter. It's the freedom of speech. And so I like to kind of remind them of the First Amendment, and also say, you can practice the First Amendment in your own home by saying, this book won't be in our home, but it can still be in a library. It can still be in the school. It's okay. And so I try really hard to stop speaking like a writer sometimes and start speaking like a reader. And I do think sometimes they'll hear it if they hear you even say, there's books I don't care for, or go against my faith or whatever. There's not really that many, but so that's my tactic so far. And I have gotten a couple of people to at least acknowledge that they may not love what I'm saying, but they acknowledge that it is a First Amendment right. And sometimes that's all you can do for right now.
Yeah, it's so important for sure. Anne or Laura, do either one of y'all want to jump in?
I write with the goal in mind that for every reader, I'm trying to help them see that they can become the heroes in their own messy lives. And based on that, I think I also recognize that I grew up being able to read everything I wanted. In fact, my mother had a drawer full of adult novels that she didn't know I was reading when I was 13. But I raised my kids to read anything they wanted, but I usually read it along with them. And one of my heroes is Robert Cormier, who was the father of young adult literature, who believes strongly that we as parents have the right to select books for our own children, but we never have the right to tell other parents what they can and cannot have their children read. And so, what I've been doing is just talking it up when I'm teaching. I have offered to go into a school board meeting where where the school board has decided that they're not going to allow Battle of the Books because they can't control the book list. I've offered to help get other writers to come to those meetings because I really do believe that our libraries are so important for our kids who are growing up in such a crazy world. I think books can save lives.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah. Laura, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to repeat what Kayla and Anna said because I think those are amazing, magnificent recommendations on the author side when talking to readers. I wanted to kind of talk about how Authors Against Book Bans as an org together, some of our initiatives to tackle this outside of just the individual author relationship. So I guess first and foremost, if you are an author here, like please go to authorsagainstbookbans.com and sign up so that you can see what initiatives are going on. But one of the things that we're really trying to push is how can we affect change on a grassroots level? How can we affect change in the legislative and political way? Whereas, like Anne and Kayla have said, a lot of the book challenges and bans come from certain maybe misinformed people on a school board, on a city council, on, they could just be your neighbor who is somehow involved in the public library, making these decisions for the mass. And what we want to do is we've done stuff like create candidate scorecards for any upcoming school board elections, for any upcoming town hall elections, for your backyard, for your local community, to say like, hey, this candidate really supports freedom to read. This candidate, maybe not so much. Maybe this candidate has worked for Moms and for Liberty before. We want to give people the information to empower them to make the best decisions for their local backyard, their local town. So I think that's something that authors can do. It's just like really Google like who is on your school board, who's on your town hall, who's there for maybe the school is not just in your immediate area, but within driving distance, so that maybe you could rally, as Anna Kayla said, some of your author friends to go over and like help those towns out as well. So at the very least, like legislation sticks, and who we vote into power will be some of the most influential decisions for book bans.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. If you are an author, I definitely encourage you to visit Authors Against Book Bans website. I also want to speak for a second to our viewers, to our non-authors out there, ways to get involved. There is bookbanpetition.us. Please sign your name to this petition and add your voice to the thousands of other people across the United States that are fighting against these bans. Other thing is nothing can be done without a few bucks, right? So you can visit everylibrary.org/2024 and donate directly towards their campaigns. Right now, every library has over 100 campaigns going across the country to combat book bans. So we hope you join us there. And now getting back to authors talking about libraries, I'm so curious. And Anne, I know you already spoke to libraries and how they've impacted your life and the importance of them. I mean, what role have they had in your life, and how have they made you who you are?
I was a big reader as a little kid, and I lived in a tiny town outside of Milwaukee. I would bet by the time I was in third grade, I'd read every single book that was in the children's section of that library. That's how tiny it was. And I remember getting detective novels out of the adult section and bringing them to the librarian, and she kept saying, "You can't have this unless your mom comes in with you." And so my mom would have to come in with me, dragging all the rest of my little siblings with her. and say, yes, Anne can read that book. And my mother did the same thing that I did with my kids. If she thought a book might be too old for me, she'd read it with me. And um, the library was my favorite place to hang out when I was little. And as an adult, I always brought my kids to the library. I've spoken at libraries. I'm always checking out their young adult section and their kids book section, as well as their adult section. I think everything in the library is for me and every other reader, so I can't get enough of them.
We love having you for sure. Kayla, have you always been a library supporter?
I have. I'm a big library geek. Libraries have saved me in so many different ways. When I used to live in New York City, and space was at a very small availability to me, and I lived in a very, 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 very small studio, and the branches of the libraries were places I could go and have space and have guidance and resources, having terrific librarians who would guide me, especially because there were very unique libraries there that would work with performing arts or math and sciences and things like that. But the librarians were also always helping people who were unhoused. They were helping people who needed assistance getting on computers. They were helping set up medical treatments if needed. And now that I live in California, the same thing is happening here. Librarians are the people who are stepping up to the front lines of censorship. They deserve all protection. They, first of all, and they're also extremely organized. And for people who aren't, that's a great resource too. Where you're like, I'm trying to find books on this, and I can't just Google. I want actual. It's like having somebody hand sell you a book. I want the right book in the right hand when I need it, and they know how to do that. But more importantly, now they're offering services like 3D printers and technical skills that help where our schools may not be able to because of underfunding or understaffing at this point. They are a third place for children and for families who can't afford to go and sit in Starbucks all day, or who can't, these are places where you go and you see your community and they see you, and we're all equal in the library. We're all equal there. I can tell you, I've seen librarians literally get up to somebody who's really struggling, and we're not supposed to have food or water in the libraries, and they will bring them a bottle of water. They will make sure they are okay. They will make sure the air is on so they're not overheating when it's very hot days. And so outside of books alone, these librarians are doing saving lives. But with the books too, they will make sure you have the book when you need it. That is a skill. That is a craft. That is an art. That is not something that Amazon can do. So, I have, it's not just the geographical location, it is the actual emotional location of where many of us in our community thrive. And when we still need a space to go to, it's always there for us. Yeah. So we have to protect them. We cannot let them be closed down. We cannot let them be understaffed, and we cannot let them be underfunded. It is essential to American quality of life actually international, but
yeah. Thank you. As a librarian, thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh.
I mean, everything you described is what we do, whether people realize it or not. So excellent. I'm glad you see us.
Oh, we do. We have in the other room, I should have brought it in. We have a big sticker that says Defend Librarians.
Yay.
It's big in our family.
Yeah, thank you. Laura, coming to you with libraries, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just thought it was funny, Kayla mentioning how libraries are so advanced now. I went back to my hometown one, and they had VR goggles. I was like, what? Growing up, we had 1 hour limits to use the internet, and now they have VR goggles. But yeah, I love that libraries are constantly growing and advancing. Growing up, both my parents are middle-class immigrants, and so they did not have the money nor want to pay for childcare. So they did what, every immigrant parent does and find the free option. So the library, in a way, became my babysitter after school every day. And the perks of growing up in a very small town in Texas is that everything's within kind of a walk from each other if it's small enough. So I would just always after school walk straight to the library. And just until my parents got off work to pick me up, I would just spend my whole time there reading every book, every graphic novel I could, browsing the web. And so that the library really became my second home and my safe space. And it also was the first place where I got to find literature and media around people that looked like me. At school, like a lot of our classic readings did not feature people who were Asian, people who were immigrants, of different cultures. And so at the library, that was the first place where I could just find those little hidden gems of books of people that I could find myself relating to and wanting to grow up to being. Yeah. So that's my journey with libraries. I'm so thankful that's really brought me where I am today.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think, going back to the keynote from the beginning of this week, these campaigns of censorship are campaigns of erasure. And it's saying, taking away certain people's stories. It's taking away, the option for a kid to come into the library and hear someone that looks like them or has the same feelings that they do or is going through the same thing. And that's really what libraries and books do. And I think all of what y'all brought really highlights the importance. And I'm so glad you've had those experiences and can speak to it. We are having so much fun. I don't know if y'all realize we only have a few minutes left. So I always want to give you some time to plug whatever you're working on, what we want to put a spotlight on today. And so, hey, Anne, do you want to tell us first, what's your next project? What are you working on right now?
I have a lot of balls in the air. So I have a picture book called Fill the Empty Bowls about the Empty Bowls Project. I have, and that's out right now being looked at. I'm revising a novel called Bella's Spirit Guide about three sisters, one of whom is dead and haunting her youngest sister, which is really a novel about grief and forgiveness. And then I'm also starting a novel that is about growing up in a large family. I wonder where I got that idea. And it's called Beautiful Sister and Me. So it's about my tormentor, who I do love. I really do love her, but she was my tormentor.
If she's watching this right now, you're going to get notes.
I will.
Oh my God. All right, Kayla, what's your next project look like?
I'm actually working on an adult novel, and adult meaning for people over 18, not extra. I always feel weird saying that. I'm working on a new fiction that is actually kind of in a psychological thriller space, which I've always wanted to try and do, and I'm finally doing it, and it's really fun. I have to say, this is one of those projects where I'm like, oh, this may not change the world, but it is relentlessly entertaining. Like I'm scaring myself a little and having a lot of fun. And it was just something during the pandemic I really wanted to try. I was watching a lot of kind of horror psychological thrillers, and the idea just didn't lend itself to young adult. There might be that version of it later, but so yeah, I'm trying that, and almost finished with second revision of it. We'll see. so maybe third. So we're getting there. And that is what I have in the works right now. And mostly this year I've been working actually with theater friends, helping them get their plays up, doing dramaturgy and stuff like that, and kind of behind the scenes on that stuff. So yeah, kind of back and forth, and writing and playwriting.
Yeah, so you haven't left the theater world, really. You're still...
I have a foot in it. Yeah, I have a foot in it. And sometimes it gets a little heavier in that world. And then sometimes it's a little more back in the writing world. But yeah, this year was a little more in the theater world for whatever I guess theater's kind of coming out of the pandemic as well. Yeah. So people have projects going again, and audiences are coming back more and more. So yeah, doing that.
And just to do a little plug for the theater, everyone should go visit their local theater. They do need audiences. We're struggling in where I live right now. So plug for the theater.
Yes, please. Thank you. Bring all the librarians to the theater.
Yes. Ooh, we'll do a collab.
Yes. Before it.
Yeah. Laura, how about you?
I just finished up my second graphic novel, also with HarperCollins, and this one will be coming out March of next year, and it's called Kirby's Lessons for Falling, in the parentheses, in Love.
Oh,
Yeah. I kind of say it's like a Heartstopper plus Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School mix, where it follows a group of queer misfit teens as they're just trying to figure out life and how much they're willing to sacrifice in order to fall in love. So yeah, check it out at my website or online at anywhere that sells books.
Yeah. Well, can't wait to see it. Also, I saw on the back of your book that you said people should reach out to you and give you bakery recommendations.
Definitely,
So
yes,
that's a
please.
plug for you. Yeah.
Send me all the bread recs for sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, Anne, Kayla, Laura, thank you so much. And also thank you to Authors Against Book Bans for partnering with every library this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to once again encourage all of our viewers to visit bookbanpetition.us to join the fight. And then also, if you're interested in donating, everylibrary.org/2024. Besides that, wishing y'all all the best vibes on your next steps. Hope to keep in touch, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.
Yeah, this is
Bye.
wonderful.
super
Bye.
fun. Nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.